Welcome back to Box Office Maniacs, and tonight I am going to be reviewing a movie you may have never heard of, or you may have heard of. It is in limited release, I believe, and it's called Bone Tomahawk. Now, what this is, if you've never heard of it, it's a Western horror movie about cannibals. The thing about this film is it has some major stars in it. I mean, first off, we have Kurt Russell. Kurt Russell in a Western. Now, believe it or not, I've always loved Westerns. Actually, I've always loved more the modern Western, I guess, rather than the old Western. I guess you could say it started with Pale Rider, with the Clint Eastwood movie. That's where my love of Westerns really started, was that film. And I really love the modern take of the Western. And I just wish there was more Westerns out there. And obviously everybody knows what a big fan of horror movies I am. So I figured, okay, this is a great combination. I love Westerns, love horror movies. Combine those two together, and what do we have? Well, what we have is a very interesting film. Like I said, it stars Kurt Russell, and he is the sheriff of this town. It also has Patrick Wilson in it, and if you don't know him, he's from the Conjuring films, and he's from the Insidious movies. Another spectacular actor. What really surprised me was the beginning of this movie had Sid Haig in it. And if you don't know who that is, he is Captain Spaulding in the Rob Zombie House of a Thousand Corpses and the Devil's Rejects films. And on top of that, it actually had David Arquette in the beginning of the film too, of course from the Scream films. The story started off very strongly. Loved all the settings, loved all the characters. It was actually pretty funny too. One of my favorite characters in this film is the guy who was the deputy, or the acting deputy. He was awesome in this film. I believe the actor's name is Fred Melamed, something like that. I mean, he was actually as good, if not better, than Kurt Russell's character. Now, Patrick Wilson's character, he has a bum leg in the film. I think he fell off a roof or something. They never really explained it, but his leg is sort of in a splint. Kurt Russell's character, the sheriff, shoots David Arquette in the leg because he's a criminal and he was trying to escape. So they end up putting him in jail. Now, Patrick Wilson's wife goes to help out David Arquette and remove the bullet from his leg. So the next morning, they go into the jail cell and everybody's gone, and there's an arrow that's stuck into the wall. So they assume some Indians came in the town for whatever reason and kidnapped everybody in the jail cell. So then Kurt Russell and the acting deputy, so the other actor in this is Matthew Fox, who plays sort of a gunslinger. And he was great in the movie. Again, all these characters had so much personality in the film. So they all go off to try to find what happened to the people in the jail cell. So half the film is basically sort of a traveling movie where they're just going from point A to point B. And all that stuff was fine. It was really entertaining. And like I said, it was really, actually pretty exciting, and lots of comedy in there too. It was pretty funny. So when they actually do get to their destination, they find out that the people who did the kidnapping are actual cannibals and not Indians. And for me, I think that's also where the film actually just kind of goes off the rails. While I didn't mind the horror element in it, it just seemed like it wasn't as thought out as well as the rest of the story. So what I'm saying is the journey to the ending of the film is really well worth watching. The ending of the film isn't terrible, but it seemed like it was rushed, and all the horror elements in it didn't seem to fit with the rest of the film. I mean, they could have really done a great job with the horror elements, and I wouldn't mind it, but it just seemed like it was just tacked in to the end, and it didn't really have any place in this film. And there's a few really good graphic sequences at the end as well, which again, it's supposed to be a horror Western, so I don't mind that. But again, it just seemed a little over the top for the rest of the movie. So in all, this was an actually really solid film. It was a lot of fun. And anyone who loves Westerns, I'd highly recommend this to you. But once it gets towards the ending of it, you will see what I'm talking about. It kind of unravels and falls apart a little bit, but it's still very much well worth watching. So I would have to give Bone Tomahawk a 3 out of 5. And you can actually buy it right now on DirecTV for like $8. That's what I did. And I think it's out in the show, but it's very limited release. Which I'm really loving that they're doing this. It's like, I was actually going to go to the movies to go see this because I didn't even know it was on DirecTV. I just happened to see it on there one day, flipping through the channels. I was like, oh man, this movie I wanted to go see. So I personally would much rather pay $8 to see a movie in my living room rather than go to the show, get in the car, drive all the way to the movie theater, sit with a bunch of loud people, and spend the same amount of money watching the same movie that I can watch in my living room. Alright, so if you like the review, make sure you hit that subscribe button so we can all see you next time on